Next example is something very similar to what you're going to see in the homework. Example 2. If f of x equals the following function, 3x to the fourth minus 16x cubed plus 18x squared, and this is on the interval, the closed interval 1 to negative 1 to positive 4. Okay. In this case, we need to graph this function and identify the absolute and relative extrema. All right, so let's do first thing first. Let's graph the function. All right, so let's see how this will work. 3 times x to the fourth minus 16 times x cubed plus 18 times x squared. Right? Now, since we do have the domain is negative 1 to 4, so on the graph program we can restrict the domain. So let's graph it. And there it is. Let's just do a zoom fit so we can... Oh, you want to tell me that you don't see it? Okay. That's a minor thing. Thank you, Spike. We're interested in the local and the absolute extrema. And we have 5 points that we're interested in. Now, the 2 points that are obvious at the end points, and the 2 non-obvious points are these points 1, 2, 3. Okay? So those are the points that interest us. So, and how are we going to find those points? Well, we keep in mind that the tangent at this point is horizontal. So, meaning that the slope of the derivative, which is this, the derivative value, which is the slope of the tangent, is 0. So we're going to look at the point. So point of interest to us. So the first 2 points are endpoints, and the endpoints are negative 1 and something and 4 and something. Well, it's easy to find out that if I'll evaluate the function, then when x equals negative 1, y equals 37, and when x equals 4, y equals 32. Okay? So that will be A. B, points such that point where f prime equals 0. Okay? So for that, we need to take the derivative of f of x, and the derivative of f of x will be 12x cubed minus 48x squared plus 36x. And we want it to equal 0. And now I see that I have a common factor. And that will be 12x. So factor out 12x and get x squared minus 4x plus 3 equals 0. Okay? 1 point, which you know from here, is x equals 0. So we have either 12x equals 0, or we can factor this one. So I jumped the gun here because I need to write it as 12x times the product of two binomials. Okay? So there is invisible 12x here until the whiteout will dry. Of how we factor x squared minus 4 plus 3? Well, that's easy enough. That will be x minus 1 times x minus 3 equals 0. And here we have the 12x. Okay, so we have x equals 0, we have x equals 1, and we have x equals 3. So the points will be 0, and of course when x equals 0, so is y. The other point will be 1 and something, and the last one will be 3 and something else. So again, if you do have the trace on your graphic calculator, or you want to calculate it in your head, you can see that when x equals 1, y equals 5, and when x equals 3, y equals negative 27. Okay, so now we have a set of 5 points. Negative 1 and 37, 4, 32, 0, 0, 1, 5, and 3, negative 27. We need to decide which one is relative and which one is absolute, max, or mean as it plays out. Now, by looking at the graph, I see that right here we'll have the absolute max. This is the highest function value. Okay, and right here we have the absolute minimum. But this point also is a local or relative. Since I use absolute, I need to use the word relative minimum. Okay? Again, whiteout to the rescue. Change local to relative. It's just semantics, but since I use absolute, then absolute, the opposite of absolute in this case will be relative. The opposite of global will be local. So I don't want to mix terminology here. Okay? So we established the absolute max and the absolute mean. So everything else, either we don't consider at all, or it will be just relative. So here we have relative minimum. Here we have relative maximum. What about this one? Is this a relative max? Think about the definition. Is this a point on an open interval?
That's a relative max.
It's not a relative max, my friend.
It's not an open interval.
It's not an open interval, it's an endpoint. So this is neither. This point is neither relative nor absolute. It's not absolute because we have a point that is higher than this one. So let's now finish the whiteout stuff. So first we have that one here, and here we're going to say this is an absolute mean, but it's also a relative minimum because it's on an open interval. Okay? So let's list it. The way you want to write it out is the following. It's a little tedious, but we need to kind of bring everything home. So we're going to make a list, and we can go from left to right. So we have the summary will be like this. You go -1 and 37, And then we have 0, 0. We have 1 and 5. We have 3 and negative 27. And we have finally the endpoint 4 and 32. And we're going to say here we have, this is an endpoint. And the endpoint is also absolute maximum. This is a relative maximum. I'm sorry, this is a relative minimum. This is a relative maximum. This is an absolute minimum, but it's also relative minimum. And this point is simply endpoint and nothing. So here we're going to write endpoint. You can erase the neither, so white out to the rescue one more time.